This is J. Krishnamurti's seventh public talk in New Delhi in 1962.
If I may, I'm going to talk about death this evening. But before we go into that immense question, I think we ought to understand the capacity to investigate, the capacity to inquire, to find out. Because that is very important in the understanding about this whole question of what is there. Because if we have that capacity to inquire, to investigate, to ask, to find out, then we shall be free from fear. Because without freedom from fear of every kind, the outward as well as inward, the understanding the outward fears as well as the psychological fears, we shall never be able to understand the immense question of death. So, what is this capacity to investigate? How does it come about? What are the necessary requirements, if one may use that word, so as to have that directive understanding capacity that will open the door to find out. First of all, it seems to me, there must be no motive in inquiry. The search must not be motivated by any personal idiosyncrasy or for any utilitarian purposes or colored by a peculiar desire for safety. Those three are absolutely essential for all inquiry, whether it is scientific inquiry or a psychological inquiry. We are this evening going to investigate psychologically into the whole question of death. And to do that, the mind must be free of motive. And it is one of the most psychologically difficult things to be free of motive, a purpose, an end which is sought unconsciously or consciously. And if one wishes to be free from the agony that fear causes with regard to death, one must surely be free of a motive. Motive being not only the cause, but also the search for an end to overcome fear. Not only the cause of fear, to find out what is the cause of fear, but also the desire to be free of it, which will prevent investigation. I do hope that you will listen so as to investigate into your own mind, into your own heart. Not merely verbally accept or deny, or bring about the argument to refute, because these will be of no avail. At the end we shall be nowhere. Fear will continue. Is it possible to be totally be free of fear, psychologically, inwardly? And to investigate into that question, not intellectually, not verbally, but actually, to walk out of this tent without fear would be a marvelous thing. Because then you will be free of the rotting society. And the agony of relationship which is society. Then you won't be caught in the net of the innumerable conflicts, problems, anxieties, guilt that exist in the mind and heart of every human being. And to investigate into this question, as I said, the mind must be entirely free from motive. Can it be free? And does it take time? If one sees the necessity of being absolutely free from fear, then that very perception eliminates the motive. Because your intention, your urge, your insistency is to be free from fear. And the investigation into the question of fear is prevented if there is a motive. Therefore, when you understand the necessity of being free from fear, the motive disappears. This is a psychological fact. Where there is of greater importance, something of greater importance, the lesser importance ceases, like in everything else. So, in inquiring into this question of fear, we must understand first of all what it means and what is implied in the process of investigation. Not of fear yet, but the mind that is capable of inquiring into fear. We are only concerned now for the few minutes, the capacity to inquire, not into death, the capacity to inquire. The capacity to inquire into death, into love, into beauty, into ambition, any of those things. And that capacity is denied if the mind is seeking to get rid of the problem. Because most of us are concerned to be free of fear. And therefore we avoid it. At the moment the mind seeks avoidance, you stop investigating. So there must be no escape in investigation. And it is extremely difficult not to escape. So one has to be aware of the implication of motive and also of escape. Because if one desires to escape, to avoid, to run away, then the whole process of investigation completely ceases. And there is no investigation if you bring in your personal opinion, your particular idiosyncrasy, or the things that you have learned. Can I proceed, sir?
Yes.
Is the loudspeaker working? As I was saying, investigation into any problem, especially psychological problems, ceases if you bring in your personal opinion or the knowledge that you have acquired from others, or project your own experiences based on your own conditioning. So see all the implications and the difficulties involved in investigation. Is it going? No? Will I begin again? We are talking of very serious matters. And as we are talking of things that are very urgent, you have to pay attention. And attention has no distraction, including the lack of loudspeaker. Because attention is a part and the process of investigation. And there is no attention when opinion, judgment, evaluation prevents investigation. And we are going to investigate into the whole question of fear. So your mind must be prepared for investigation, not mere acceptance or denial of what is being said or not said. Because you are concerned with living, everyday living, with all the misery, the anxiety, the sorrow, the pain, the passing joys. You are concerned with all that. And mere accepting verbal explanation, asserting some knowledge that you have acquired from some book, does not solve your problem. Only the problems are solved through investigation, through complete understanding of the problem. And this problem of fear is an extraordinarily urgent problem. It doesn't matter whether it is for the old or for the young, because death faces every one of us, with the young and with the aged. And to understand it, to investigate it, to go into this whole problem of what it is to die, requires a mind that is capable of investigating. And investigation, as I pointed out, is impeded, is denied when there is motive, when there is a search for an end, when personal opinion or knowledge that you have acquired, when you project that into your investigation, all investigation ceases. So one must be aware of these facts when we are investigating. Motive, the urge to seek an end and to escape. And this subtle forms of opinions, evaluations and judgments. If that is very clear with each listener, then we can proceed into the investigation of fear. What is fear? What is it that fears? And how does fear arise? Because fear distorts perception, distorts clarity. A mind that's afraid lives always in an illusion, whether it's the illusion of God or the illusion of this adjusting oneself to society, or trying to make oneself perfect. As long as there is any form of psychological fear at any level, conscious or unconscious, there must be distortion of form, distortion of perception. And therefore it is very important for sanity, for sensitive living, that the mind should not only understand the whole process of fear and to find out if it is possible to live without it. So, the essence of fear is non-existence. Because we all want to live. We all want to continue in some form or another, even though our life is miserable, petty, narrow, short, sighted, and not rich, not full. However shallow it is, we want to live. We want to express ourselves. We want to be in relationship with something. And this desire to be in relationship with another, with nature, with ideas, is the very essence of the desire to live, to love, and to be loved, to express, and to fulfill with all its anxieties, frustrations. Fear surely exists only in relationship to something. Fear doesn't exist in abstraction by itself. Fear exists in the desire to continue and to search out, to find, to establish a permanency. Please, as I've said, you are listening not to me, not to my words or to certain ideas, but you are listening, observing your own mind and your own heart. You are watching your own process of your own life. The words are merely a mirror, but the mirror is not the life. The mirror shows what is in your heart and your mind. But if you merely listen to words, accepting or denying those words, then you're not watching your own mind. And this talk and these talks are not meant to increase or add more ideas and ideations, but rather to point out to you the operation, the working of your own mind and heart. So please, if I may point out, observe your own mind. And also, as I've said often, listening is an art. Because if you know how to listen rightly, there is an immediate perception and understanding to listen to something totally, with all your being. That is, with all your senses, with your heart, with your mind, with your body, completely, to listen to something. Then you will see in that very act of listening, the thing of which you are afraid, the thing that causes fear, has completely gone away. But we do not listen. We never do listen. Because we are tired, we have our own problems. And when we do hear, we compare what is being said to what you have already known. So your mind is never quiet to listen. It's always agitated in listening. And a mind that is agitated cannot understand or listen. And this is a problem of understanding immediately. Understanding doesn't come about through time, through comparison. Understanding comes when your mind is clear, sharp, sane, rational. Then you understand immediately. And the immediacy of the problem is urgent. Because, as you know, as everybody knows, the world and yourself are in travail. There is such anxiety and misery. Anxiety and misery are not just words, are not slogans. You have to understand them. You have to go into the very root of it and tear it out to find out. So, if you know how to listen, and if you do so listen so attentively, completely, then you will find, as you are listening, the very thing of which you are afraid, conscious or unconscious, is being revealed, and you will wipe it away, put it away completely, totally, forever. Because a mind that has fear is a corrupt mind. It may occupy high places. It may go to the churches, temples, and repeat endlessly some sacred words which have no meaning, because the heart and the mind are corrupt in fear. And to understand fear is quite a difficult problem. It's much more important to understand it, to understand the immensity of death. So fear exists not only of little things, but also of great things. You're afraid of your wife, your husband. You're afraid of losing a job. You're afraid of public opinion. You're afraid of not having anything permanent in your life. Because everybody seeks some form of permanency. As there is no permanency in this world, there is no permanency in any relationship between your wife and yourself, your husband and yourself, between yourself and society, between yourself and your boss and your occupation. There is nothing permanent in this world. And so the mind turns to something much more, seeking something much more permanent, which you call God, an idea, and having established, holds it tight to its heart, an idea. And is there anything permanent psychologically? We know outwardly there is nothing permanent. Inwardly we want permanence. And there is nothing permanent. Even your wife and your husband, your children, your ideas, your beliefs, your dogmas, nothing is permanent. But you refuse, the mind refuses to see that. Because all our society, all our virtues, all our principles are based on this idea of permanency. So fear comes into being when that permanency is questioned. In that permanency we establish our being. We identify ourselves with an idea which we say is permanent, as the supreme and God and all the rest of the ideological jargon. And when that permanency is questioned, the whole structure of fear arises. And there is fear of immediacy and of the future. future, that is tomorrow, is the projection of time, which is thought. Please, I am talking of very simply of very complicated problem. And it's only when you approach a problem very simply, which is complicated, then you begin to see clearly. Thought is the response of time. Thought is the response of memory, which is the past. The past through the present, which is thought, which is the present, which was the past, creates the future. Thought. So we have to understand the process of thinking in order to understand fear. And to understand fear, you must understand time. So first let us inquire into the question of thought. What is thinking? I am asking you a question. What is thinking? And your immediate response, if you are aware of your response, is for memory for the awakening of memory, which seeks to find an answer. Please follow this, very simple. All right, let me put it differently. I ask you where you live, and your response is immediate because you are very familiar with that. There is an interval between the question and the answer. You know it instantly because you are familiar with it. I ask you something a little more complex. Then there is an interval of silence, an interval of time. During that interval, memory is in operation. And then you answer. So during the question and the answer, the time interval is the process in which memory comes into operation and thought comes out, expressed in words. So thought is the response of memory. And memory is the multiplication of 1,000 yesterdays with all its experiences and knowledge. The culture in which it is brought up, the education it has had, conscious or unconscious. From this background of knowledge, memory, every challenge is answered. And the answering is in action previous to thought. Thought comes and acts. A whole mechanism of memory. So unless you have understood this mechanism of memory, of thought, you will not be able to understand what time is. Time apart from the chronological time, time by the watch, time by 24 hours and all the rest of it. Time as yesterday, today and tomorrow, in time, by the watch. We are not talking of that time. We are talking of the psychological time. the time that builds up tomorrow, the time thought has invested in hope, time as the future where you will be something, time as achievement, time as arriving, gaining. All that time is psychological. It is not chronological. So, a mind that wishes to understand and comprehend the whole problem of fear has to understand the process of thinking. The process of thinking in oneself, not in some book. The process of your own thought. And how thought fabricates time. If there is no thought, there is no time. If you are told that you'll die on the instant, now, there is no fear because you're dead. Fear comes in only when there is an interval between the fact and what should be not be, what you hope will not be. So, thought is fear, thought is time, and the ending of thought is the ending of fear. Just listen to it. Don't ask how to end thought. Just listen to it. Because I'm going to go into it much more. If you are able to listen to it, you'll understand it. So, in investigating fear, one has to understand thought. Thought is the reaction of memory. And memory is the past. The past being not only the 1,000 years past, but also the past of yesterday. The past in which you have been educated in English, in some technology. All the reaction of the past is time, which is thought. And so, fear arises when thought is conscious of itself in contradiction. If there is no contradiction, if there is no conflict, if there is no urge to fulfill, then there is no consciousness of the border of time. So, thinking, which is the response of memory, and that memory is the center from which all action takes place, the me, my family, my country, my job, my virtue, the center, from which all thought as reaction takes place. As long as that center exists, there must be fear. And that center is nothing extraordinary, nothing spiritual. It is sheer machinery of memory. It's a bundle of memories. And so there is fear when that center is questioned. when that center is made to feel uncertain, when that center feels it cannot achieve, when that center feels itself frustrated, when that center feels utterly lonely. Now we're going to examine into this question of loneliness, because that's the very essence of fear, which is not being. I do not know if you have ever been aware how lonely you are. I do not mean solitude. I do not mean aloneness. I mean lonely. You feel this loneliness when someone whom you love dies, ceases, or someone whom you love turns away from you. When that person turns away from you, you are jealous. And that jealousy is the response of this loneliness, which is the questioning of the very center, which demands permanency. I do not know if you have been aware of loneliness, the ache of loneliness, complete isolation, without having any relationship to anything. You must have felt it. Every person who is at all sensitive, thoughtful, aware, obviously feels. And then feeling this loneliness from which arises fear, it runs away from it. It takes to drink, women, church, God, rituals, anything to escape from this feeling of loneliness. And having escaped to the thing that is most satisfactory with those who call themselves religious, God becomes extraordinary escape. Or those who are worldly, intellectual rationalization. And if you have money, drink, or sex, or 1,001 things to escape from this loneliness. And these escapes become all important because they give you sense of permanency. And when that permanency is questioned, you are back again to the problem of loneliness and fear. And you try to fill this loneliness with knowledge, with books, with sex, with virtue, and nothing can fill it. If you have gone into yourself and observed this whole process, nothing can fill it. All that you have to do is to face it. All that you have to do with fear is to face it. That is, the word is not the thing. Please follow this. The word is not the thing. The word fear is not fear. But for most of us, the word has become important. Not only with regard to fear, with regard to God, with regard to sex, with regard to communism, with regard to the politician, everything. Words, symbols have become important, and not the fact. Which means the mind is slave to words. You are slave to the word communism or Congress or Hindu, Buddhist, Muslim. So if you would understand fear, the mind must be free of the word. Because the word contains condemnation. And therefore, you cannot approach the fact if the mind is slave to the word. I'll put it very, very simply. The word jealousy, in that word itself, there is a condemnatory implication. Like the word anger. In that word, there is the significance which involves that you must not be. And if you would understand the feeling and go behind the word, what is involved in jealousy, you must be free of the word. Sure, that's simple. So, when you are investigating into fear, one must be free of the word. Not only of that word, fear, but the whole system of words, symbols, to which the mind has become a slave. Please follow this, because if you don't understand it, what I'm going to explain further, you will miss totally. So the word God is not God, but to be free of that word, God, is extraordinarily important to find out what God is, if there is God. And word is thought. There is no thinking if it is not verbalized. So, fear is the word, the opinion, the escape from the fact. If you are confronted with the fact, immediately there is no fear. You have to look at it. But the word implies time, which is thought. And when there is thought, there is an interval between the fact and the process of thinking. So you never see the fact. I'm going to go into this. That is, there is death, an undeniable fact. You see it in every day. Every house has it. Every human being knows it. It is an end, an absolute, final, irrevocable end. You may spin a lot of theories around it, that there is continuity, that there is hereafter, that there is a future life and all that. But the fact is fact. If you understand the fact, we will find out what there is more beyond. But without understanding the fact and facing the fact, you can't go beyond. The fact is there is death. And there is no argument about that. You can't argue with that. You can't say it will come tomorrow. So what is this dying? There is not only the physiological dying, the body coming to an end, that we readily agree to. Because it's a machine, it's an organism that is worn out by misuse, by conflict, by pressures, by various struggles, bad diet, and the whole process of it comes to an end. That we accept very easily and very readily. But we say, is that all? I have lived, I have struggled, I have acquired, I have experienced. I have built up a tremendous past. What for? Will all that go if I die? Or will there be a continuity? Now how are you going to find out? You understand? You're not listening to me to accept ideas. I'm not giving you arguments or refuting what you believe and substituting my particular form of belief. I have no belief in this matter, only facts. I want to know what death is. And I can't find out if I don't know how to die. I know physically the body continues, you know it. Continues till you come to an end, as a machine does. Now, is it possible to die psychologically, to know what it means to die, to end? You understand my question? Am I making my question clear? Look here, sirs. There is death. Something you do not know. And what you don't know, you are afraid of. At least you think you are afraid of something you do not know. Is that so? How can you be frightened of something you do not know? You are frightened of something, losing something which you already know. That is the real cause of fear, not of the unknown, but of something which you have stored up. Losing that, you are afraid. You are afraid of losing the known, not of the unknown. So, can you die to the known? Do you understand, sir? Can you die to the yesterday's memory, to all your insults, to all the things that you have gathered, to die freely, easily, happily, to things that you have held dear? Because that's what's going to happen psychologically. You may love your family, and I wonder if you do love your family. If you do love your family, this rotting society wouldn't be like this. So can you die to your pleasures, to your vanities, to your ambitions, to your greeds on the instant? Because that's what's going to happen when you do die. And to die to yesterday, to die to every minute, to all the things that you have gathered, is death. So, it means, can you live always in a state of not knowing, and therefore always young, fresh, innocent? You know, death is an extraordinary thing. Death is the unknown. You cannot come to it with the known. You cannot come to it with all your burdens. It's going to strip you of everything. Your family, your sons, your character, your ambitions, everything it's going to strip you. And why not strip yourself of it now? Strip yourself of all that. Then you will know what death means. And I assure you, when you do know it, you will know great beauty. Then you will know what love is. Because death, love and beauty always go together. Because the thing that we call love is not love. It's mere memory. What you love is your personal investment. What you love, your family, is the continuity of yourself. Your family is your own immortality, your own continuity. And you know your family, when you die, there is no family. Nothing exists. So is it possible to die to everything that you have known? This is not annihilation. This is not denial. This is not nothingness. There is an immensity, there is a vastness, in something beyond words, when you know how to deny the whole ground of that which you have known. So to die to everything that you have known every moment, which means never to gather, never to accumulate, and therefore never have the conflict of detachment. So, death is a state when the mind has lost all recognition of itself as consciousness and the borders of time. And where there is continuity of thought, which is what most of us want, which is all that we know, which breeds sorrow, anxiety, guilt, and all the travail of life, that thought has a continuity of its own. But thought is bound by time. But when thought dies to itself, when the machinery of memory as thought comes to an end, which is psychological thought, not the mechanical thought of knowledge, technique, then you will find that the thing that you are afraid of is not, fear ceases altogether. Then you are living completely, integrally, wholly from moment to moment. And that is creation. You know, for us, beauty is the thing that is put together by man. Or, for us, beauty is the woman or the man, the surface, the building, the picture, the pottery, or an idea. There is beauty beyond thought and feeling, which is not put together by the mind. And that beauty is love. And without that love, life becomes utterly empty, as most people's lives are. though they have families, though they have virtue, though they have jobs, their life is empty, very shallow, petty. But to die to everything, psychologically, then you will find, if you have gone that far, that out of dying there is a living. A living which is not, which has no meaning as compared to this living. That living is a state of creation. And that creation has no time. That is the immense, the immeasurable, the unknowable. And only a mind that has died to itself, to everything that it has known, will know the unknowable.